Hey everyone, welcome back to another Q&A. We're joined with Jamie this morning. Jamie, thank you for your faithful preaching on 2 Corinthians 8 and just the importance of generosity. Before we get into a few questions though, why don't you maybe remind the listener who hasn't heard the sermon yet?
Yeah, Paul is addressing the church at Corinth, obviously in 2 Corinthians chapter 8. And he gets into the area of giving. And what he's doing is amongst the churches that with which he's working, he's taking up a collection to take back to basically what would be the mother church in Jerusalem. They were going through a difficult time. There were a lot of experts who don't know exactly what was going on, whether it was a famine or it had to do with war or whatever, but they were in desperate need. So there were practical aspects of that gift that was being taken up to meet some immediate needs, but it was also meant to be a blessing from these churches that had sprung off from the mother church, so to speak, to be able to give back so that the church in Jerusalem would not only benefit from it in material ways, but also glorify their Father in heaven for the work that was starting to go out from Jerusalem to other parts of the world. So the church at Corinth had fallen in their giving. Paul addresses many sins in 1 Corinthians and also in 2 Corinthians, and then he starts talking about giving. The church at Corinth had fallen behind in their giving, and what he's doing is he's addressing the issue that Jesus says, where your treasure is, your heart will be also. So by addressing the issue of giving, it's going to be able to touch on all these other sins and put Christ back in the center and the power of the gospel at work within the life of the individual.
So in our context with Mount Birmingham, we can sometimes say, well, I don't see a lot of needs where I live or where I work. But how might, and kind of going back to where your treasure, your heart is, how might our lack of the understanding of the need of the gospel that we need in our life every day might hamstring our ability, or maybe even put a veil or blind us over really the needs that are out there to be generous?
Yeah, I think the essence of sin is putting ourselves in the place of God. So what sin has a tendency to do for us is to look at the world around us, to look at our gifts, to look at our resources. And what sin causes everything to do, it causes everything to gravitate towards us. The world revolves around us. We become a world unto ourselves. And what the power of the gospel does is it turns our eyes towards Jesus, who's the creator of everything. And not only is he the creator of everything, but everything has been created for his own glory. And then thirdly, he has also given up all of his riches so that we, as Paul says in that passage, so that we who are poor might become rich. So it's the gospel that propels us beyond ourselves towards giving for the glory of God and for the good of other people.
Yeah, and we were talking a little earlier, it's easy for us to understand the blessing people receive when maybe we give them a gift, right? We're doing Thanksgiving baskets right now. We have an opportunity to do the angel tree coming up for Christmas. But I think oftentimes, right, we might minimize the impact of the opportunity for us to be generous. And so how would you encourage someone in helping them see that, hey, look, when we give and we're generous, it's actually a great blessing and impact on your own life?
Yeah, I think what it is it wasn't easy for Jesus to lay aside his heavenly glory and to give up his riches. And that's one of the things we talked about, is what it meant for him to become poor, as he took on human flesh. He had nothing. It's like what I said in the middle of the sermon. From a material standpoint, his mother and father had to find a place for him to be born. He had to borrow a mule to ride into Jerusalem, where he was going to be crucified. He had to have a tomb to be given to him for him to be buried in. So he knows what it's like to be poor. So when we give up, it's not like Jesus is asking us to do something that he hasn't done himself. And it's a way in which we can identify with him. And then when we give generously out of what he's given, it's an opportunity to be able to focus our eyes on the true riches that we have in him. And it's a way in which we can die to ourselves, and we can find that our true treasure is indeed in heaven and not in the things of this world.
That's right. the Lord is able to find ample opportunities to be generous to us, and so we should find ample opportunities to be generous to others as well. So, well, thank you for your word on Sunday and just the challenge and the blessing of being generous. As always, if you have a question that you would like discussed here on this podcast or just a topic in general, we would love to hear from you, discuss it out here. And as always, thank you for listening.